Hello, everyone. I'm Devi Jags, and this is Sparkle On. Sparkle is your happiness, passion, and self-worth, and it is found through the power of creativity. Today, I have a really, really special guest. He is Brian Menke. I like to call him Brian Glow Up Menke because I have known Brian since I was 18 years old at Xavier University, and he's come a long way with a better haircut and completely embracing his truest self, becoming a painter and singer-songwriter here in Austin, Texas. That's where we're recording today. It's a special episode. Brian, thank you for joining the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
I'm standing and I'm shouting out.
I know we've talked about this over the years. It's just like, I'm so proud of you, like completely diving in headfirst to your identity as an artist. And as I was prepping for this episode, I was really trying to remember, like, listen, college is a hazy memory, but like also I have, like, everyone asks me, they're like, well, how do you remember everything? Like, you were so drunk. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. But like, I was really trying to remember the first time that we met. And I know it was like through a lot of like mutual friends and like Delta Sigma Pi, which was like our business fraternity. And like, I just came across like a core memory that I had locked away sitting in our sophomore dorm building. It wasn't even like you weren't even there, but I was with a group of girls and you had just broken up with one of the girls. But one of the things that really stood out to me was they were talking about how you were facing a sort of depression and that you couldn't feel like you could be in a relationship anymore. And I think that's really common. I know I've went through that like around those years as well. Like I felt like I couldn't be in a relationship because I didn't know who I was, but I literally hated the way the group was like brushing off the depression because it was so clear that the girl who's hurting, she believed you because she knew you. And so I kind of wanted to dive into, maybe you didn't know you were an artist at the time, but the way that someone might have these strong emotions, and how do you think that, like, does it get in the way of a relationship, or how do you navigate that? Are you still working through that?
Yeah, I would say I'm definitely still working through it, but at the time that you're describing in college, I remember getting to college and it's like you get a taste of like real world problems and like
Yeah.
real world struggles and intense relationships that maybe you haven't experienced before. And at the time, I wasn't doing art hardly at all. That art wasn't even really a part of my life. It was in high school, but once I got to college, it kind of fell to the wayside. And I was like, how do people cope with these emotions? And you look around and it's a lot of partying and like heavy drinking. And I kind of just hopped on board that, which of course didn't always help the
Yeah.
situation in hand.
No.
So I really didn't have an outlet at the time that I do now. And I think I always like the metaphor of like you get like a spike in your side, like a thorn in your side. You experience some kind of pain in your life. And at the time, that was my depression that I really was feeling deeply at the time. And you have two options. You can either pull the spike out, or you can go about your life with it in your side, and you're going to be bumping into people, causing pain, and also causing pain for yourself because you're navigating life just trying to work around this thing as opposed to like addressing it head on. And I think at the time that's kind of what I was doing, and it factored into my relationships. And I definitely think as a creative person, your brain has a superpower. You can come up with all these awesome ideas.
Mhm.
You can also come up with all these ideas that are not helpful, that are
Yeah.
self-destructive, and you can almost creatively destroy yourself a little.
Yeah, I always say that your biggest strength is also probably your biggest weakness.
Right.
And I feel that so heavily all of the time, especially like in my own writing, is like I know when I'm in my flow state and I'm achieving something great with my writing, but then I know I can be my own worst enemy,
Mhm.
especially at the times that I avoid it. And usually when I'm avoiding it, I'm probably on the cusp of like one of my biggest realizations or truths yet. And
Mhm.
even like the imagery that you just described was so powerful. but you said that you did pursue art when you were in high school and essentially a child. What aside from like the partying and honestly our culture at Xavier was very much about fitting in a certain status quo, like
Mhm.
it's a Jesuit, university, like it has a certain, I guess, blueprint
Mhm.
that I know I felt that I needed to follow, and I never followed it. To be honest, I don't know how I have my degree, but I think, like, I would have never known back then that you weren't part of that flywheel, right?
Mhm.
Until we stayed connected and we watched each other's journey. And so, what was the initial reason for you where you kind of still, like, let art go?
Yeah, I mean, I was learning art, and I had a really good high school art teacher that inspired me. And he always talked about art as it's more than just creating a pretty picture. It's a means of expression. It's a means of dealing with these painful emotions and transforming it. But then I think when I got to college, my mom talked me out of an art degree and into a
Mm,
business degree, which was honestly okay move in the long run
yeah.
because I'm still doing art now. But, I just kind of fell off of art altogether, and I don't think I even realized at the time that I was missing that emotional outlet.
Mm. And, like, you talk about how art has been living proof that you can like heal through your
Mhm.
depression and you've transformed. Can you speak to some of that power, whether it's been through painting or music or both, and when you kind of found and stepped into that?
Yeah, I think, one really good example of this, I did a painting a while back so in the midst of my depression, probably for 5 or 6 years, there were intermittent periods where, like, suicidal ideation was pretty present, and I would turn to self-harm, on a fairly frequent basis as, like, a release, I think because I didn't have much of an outlet. Years later, when I found art a few years back, I had this idea, the self-harm scars on my shoulder that have been a source of shame for so long, like a physical representation of my pain. I grabbed a paintbrush one night and just started doing little brush strokes on
Hmm.
like every scar. And I remember I cried. And it was the first time I remember crying where it wasn't coming from a source of like self-loathing. It was like healing tears.
Yeah.
And that was really powerful. And I ended up turning that image into a painting that I did too.
No, I love that. And do you know what made you reach for like a paintbrush? Like, was there something maybe even from your childhood where you really just enjoyed playing in paint, or it was like the thing that was accessible at the time?
I think it was accessible, but I also think that there's this really interesting, upon reflection, sort of contrast between, what caused those scars in the first place and then the gentleness of the brush and feeling just
Mm.
the gentle stroke of a brush in a place that I inflicted pain at one point. It felt like a really big kind of full circle moment.
I love that because even what you just said sounded like so rhythmic and like something out of a song. And I guess how did you then start to experiment in a different medium like music, and how does one fuel the other and vice versa?
Yeah, I always say that I think music is more of an outward. It feels more of like an extrovert side of my artistic expression,
Uh-huh.
and I feel like painting has always been very personal, very internal too. And I think there's a relationship between the both of them. But definitely when I'm painting, I'm coming up with song lyrics, and when I'm writing songs, I'll get an idea for a next painting. So there's kind of this cross pollination between the two.
And what are some of your like biggest like inspirations, whether it be music or whatever? Because like I know like when I'm listening to music, I have to play a song over and over and over again
Mhm.
until I write the chapter that I need to write. And so
Mhm.
I don't know, like if you're in your art studio and you're painting something, like do you have a certain band or a certain song that you kind of really like get into?
Yeah, I think it's really situational. Right now, I'm working on a painting. It's a portrait of a friend of mine. She's got this very defiant sort of appearance, and I've just been listening to a lot of like Lucinda Williams or like these artists, female artists that are just very empowering. So while I'm doing this painting and thinking about this empowering friend of mine and her defiance, it's kind of filtering into it. So the music a lot of times feeds into the painting itself, I think.
That's super cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like it's sort of like how music videos come to life. It's like you're doing it with a more traditional medium of painting, but it's like kind of pulling all those visuals together according to the storytelling of the song is really, really powerful. And I think it probably brings a lot of joy to see something like that transform, not in just like your own feeling, but like for everyone else to see.
Hmm.
Um, I am very curious because like I know I think about my time in Cincinnati as somewhat living in the shadows, although I was always dancing on your bar at your house junior year, very visible for the world to see. Guys, Brian lived in this house that went probably against every building code in the
Oh
book.
yeah, it was nasty.
But I held my 20th birthday there and I made everyone wear pink. There's this bar in his living room that we'd all dance on. It was really sick. But with that being said, you really stepped into a light, quite literally in the sunlight, when you moved to
Hmm.
Austin, Texas. How has place helped inform your art, but also helped your mental health?
Yeah, no, I definitely enjoyed my time in Cincinnati. I mean, like you said, looking back on those years, it does feel like kind of a dark, shadowy time. But I think that pain was kind of necessary to make me realize like this is not the life I want to live. And then when I moved to Austin, I already knew I visited one time and just felt the energy here.
Hmm.
And I knew from talking to people, it's very collaborative and very community based, artistic city. And that really appealed to me. And then I get here and it's exactly that. I think the community here is so embracing. Everybody embraces one another. Everybody wants to work with one another. They want to see everybody else succeed. I don't think that's true in a lot of creative like areas. So I think there's something really amazing about having a community where everybody's actually wanting to lift each other up.
Yeah, no, I feel it ever since I've been visiting here for the last couple of years. Like, you don't even need to talk to that many people for you to realize it. It's a
Yeah.
really special place in that way. Um, and I guess like one of the things that I wonder is this place offers such energy for and permission.
Permission. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's big.
it's huge. And especially what I was thinking about, during all the places that you've lived, it's like, and your experiences, do you think it's harder for men to pursue creativity and like be an artist? Because it doesn't feel
Yeah.
that way here. But in some parts of the world, I will get talking to some of these people that I know are artists and they
Mhm.
can't express themselves. Is it harder for men?
I 100% think so. I remember actually at one point at Xavier, there was some kind of thing that came up on the TV about it was the first time the term toxic masculinity was being talked about. I
Hmm.
remember being offended initially and being like, "Oh, like what? It's toxic to be a man, like blah 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 blah." blah."
I
But then,
probably was part of that campaign, putting on that campaign.
yeah, it might have been you putting
You
up the sign.
probably.
But then, like, once I learn more, I'm realizing, okay, yeah, there maybe a lot of these things that I'm dealing with right now are like a manifestation of toxic, not just for the people around me, but for myself. And I think one of those things is, I mean, I grew up on a farm in just outside of a blue collar city. So there's some great things about that, instilling like hard work and, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, all that like good stuff. But then there's also not a lot of room for like, hey, we can express our emotions.
Mhm.
We can kind of dip into this feminine energy that I think is in all of us. And I think the feminine energy is very healing. I think there's a lot of grace there. And I don't think I really found that until I moved to Austin and felt like it was embraced. Just be who you are, whether I'm wearing women's pants right now. Like,
Yeah,
I wouldn't be
and they're
wearing
great.
women's pants in Cincinnati.
I think you look awesome. Like, yeah, but no,
Thank you.
I hear it. I like, well, the style here is like it's impeccable. Like you go to any thrift shop, you find something cool, and everyone's so inventive in their
Hmm.
style. I really like what you said about tapping into a different kind of energy, a feminine
Hmm.
energy. And I guess what was your first memory of being open. You talk about seeing the information education around toxic masculinity at Xavier, but especially at Austin, where you had the freedom to be whoever you wanted
Mhm.
because no one knew you. What
Mhm.
was that initial, like, I guess, spark, if you will, that were like, hey, maybe I can be someone else that's a better version of myself?
Hmm. I don't really know if there was just one moment. I think it was just kinda little things along the way. Something that I would initially just an idea that it's like I like the example of, like, you go into a thrift store and developing a sense of style, you see something, you're like, "This is me."
Yeah.
And I think years ago, I never really had that. So
Mhm.
I think an outward style is kind of a representation of once you get that comfortability and that sense of self, I think that sort of you just see things, whether it's an article of clothing or some art you want to create, and you just know right off the bat, like inside of you, that this is my style. This aligns with kind of my energy.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I also feel like when you're young, so many people, like, at least this happened to me, it was like, they would say, "Oh, that isn't you," or,
Hmm.
like, "That doesn't seem like something that you would like," and it's like, "Well, I'm 18 years old, I don't even know what I like. I don't even know the
Right.
type of man I like." Not man, boy. Like there's so much in that when, like, people around you are also trying to fit a certain mold and then telling you, where it's like it makes you question that inner voice, that intuition, to the point where you maybe, like, don't pick up a paintbrush for
Right.
years on end. And I guess I'm kinda curious because I know I'm facing this in my, like, artistic journey right now, is, like, I'm actually almost exhausted of talking about the same thing, that
Hmm.
that revisiting of a past life,
Hmm.
but I know it informs so much about my future. And you said you grew up on a farm and you
Hmm.
you paint beautiful landscapes. Do you ever get sick of one medium where you have to turn to a completely other, like music? And then when do you find your way back to a project, or when do you, like, how do you find, I guess, energy in something that may have been from a past or a place that's complicated and use it to, fuel the new?
Yeah. So I think to address like the second part of the question about the the past and the revisiting some things that aren't always, you do get tired of revisiting them.
Mhm.
Um, I think it very much. I'm grateful, and I know that's such a cliche that people say, but I'm kind of grateful for like the tough times
Yeah.
because I think I developed a deeper sense of self through them,
Mm.
and also developed some roots over time once I actually started transforming that pain. So I think that's always going to be present in my work, even if I'm healing and just everything's great. There's still going to be that piece of me that's still there, and I think that's almost like a foundational piece.
Yeah. That makes sense. It's like you always have to remember the roots to kind of build from it.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess, like, well, you have a couple singles out on Spotify.
Yeah.
So where did the writing come in? Where did that process really come from, a paintbrush and putting it into actual words that maybe match some of the imagery that you were trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I tend to think of writing and painting, they seem like totally different things, but I'm sure you like the first part of any project is super intimidating. You have this cool idea, but then you have a blank page, you have a blank canvas, and getting started is really tough. And then
Mhm.
you have this whole messy section up till the 99% of the project where you're just like, I don't even know. I crushing doubt it multiple times. The painting's just looking like shit, or all my words don't seem to make sense. But you know there's an idea there, and you see a vision and you keep following it. And I think there's so much correlation between the writing and the painting with that, and just trusting your instincts, and whether it's rearranging some words or filling in some details on a painting, everything does come to form eventually if you stick with it. So,
And it kind of goes back to what you said about your roots, about growing up in, like, outside of a blue collar town where
mhm.
you really have to stick with something and work hard to see the results. I've noticed, especially with a lot of, like, young students I mentor, um, some of their fears around creativity is they don't know what that trust or gut feeling feels like
Yeah.
when they've accomplished something like a painting. And I know you work with students as well. How would you describe what that feeling is like and maybe even the cadence of getting there? I know that's probably a loaded question,
Mhm.
but if you were to even tell your younger self, especially in those dark times, where that anchor
Mhm.
lives, where have you found it kinda lives for you?
I think it's just really falling in love with the process, and that's I feel like another cliche, but it's really the act of creating itself is what's healing to me. It's not the end result
Mhm.
of whether it be a painting or a song. I think it's the act of creation that really keeps me going. And I always tell my students in my art class, like, it's about expression, not perfection, because they're always
Good one.
their biggest hurdle is like, well, mister, I don't do that much art and it's not going to look good. And I'm like, that's okay. Just do what's out there. I had a student who was being bullied at school,
Mm.
who was gay, and he didn't know how to like express his feeling and his rage that was frankly like boiling inside of him, having all of his peers tease him for this. And he came to class one day, and I could tell he had a rough day. Asked him what happened. He said he got into a fight because kids were teasing him, and you could just tell he didn't even want to like interact with the class. So I gave him just like some markers and a big piece of paper, and I just said, "Go nuts! Like just put it all out there. Don't worry about what it looks like or anything." And he just like basically scribbled for like an hour, but you could just see the rage that was just
Yeah.
coming out of him and going onto the paper, and it ended up being like a really cool piece. And I think that's just a perfect example of just sometimes you just need an outlet to put it out there.
And I even get emotional just, like, thinking about that because it's like, I've had so many amazing teachers in
Mhm.
my life for me to even be sitting here talking to you, right?
Mhm.
And I'm sure you have as well, but the fact that it's still, like, this bullying and this nitpicking at to kids is still happening, and we, like, relentlessly still have to, like, be that one person that hopefully gives them that permission again.
Yeah.
How has teaching helped you become a better artist?
It's amazing because I feel like so many times I see these kids taking these leaps, and it inspires me as an artist even years down the road of creating art. I still have the same fears that they do. Like I'm
Yeah.
still, oh, this looks like shit. Like I don't want to put this out in the world. Same doubts, but seeing them overcome those hurdles for the first time is super inspiring. It makes me want to just forge ahead with what I do and take creative risk too, because even though I've maybe have like refined some skills over time, I think there's always opportunities for us to take those leaps.
Mhm.
I don't know if you feel that same way too, where it's just like there's still these scary things for us as creative people. Like it never stops.
I feel like I probably haven't slept in a good 6 months. Like, I moved apartments from where I am in LA to, like, in LA, right? I was up in the mountains. It was great. It was quiet, lots of trails. And Brian, I can't tell you, I literally haven't slept, like,
Hmm.
truly deep sleep slept in months, and I think it's not just because of me living in a louder place, right?
Hmm.
I think I have developed so much fear that, like, I don't even know why, and 'cause I don't I've always been someone that's put myself out there
Hmm.
in every single way. Like, to be honest, every guy I've ever been with, like, I've made the first move, I feel like.
Hmm.
But
It's that Leo energy.
yeah, it's just like but and what I admire about you is, like, you've always from what I can tell, when you committed to being an artist, you've always put yourself out there as an artist.
Hmm.
You're always in, like, art shows or selling your stuff on the street or painting in front of people, like, as a work
Hmm.
in progress. And I know I just even said this to you before we started recording was, like, I I'm not as good as the work in progress stuff. I think I
Hmm.
used to be when I was, like, trying to figure myself at Xavier, and then somewhere along the way, I kinda stopped, probably because I did have a couple, like, hard losses, but I am kind of curious to kinda take a note from you is, like, how do you kind of constantly put yourself out there, especially with something so visible as, like, painting and
Hmm.
singing?
Hmm.
Like, I don't do that with my writing anymore. I used to. I used to have a bunch of sad poetry on my Instagram. It's gone now, but, um and now I only publish if it's like or publish it for the public if it's finished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I still struggle with that 100%. Like, I don't want to seem like I'm just fully comfortable with that. There's plenty of times where I won't finish a painting or I will discard a song. I've got millions of voice memos of ideas that just kind of fell by the wayside because I didn't maybe truly believe in them or I had that fear. But I think in regards of like the scary things, I always love, I can't remember exactly the quote, but like if it excites you as much as it scares you or even more, then that's something you should do because that's something that's going to like
Yeah.
help you grow. So if I feel in my gut like this is scary, but it's also something that's really like lighting some kind of fire inside of me creatively, I try to lean into those things. I don't always, but yeah, I really try to lean into those type of things.
When you say lean in, is there a first step that like kind of starts to get that ball rolling? Like, is it a journal entry? Is it like playing a chord on your guitar? Like, what does that even like the smallest of imperfect steps look like?
Yeah, I just think it's just really as simple as starting because an idea can just stay in your head and just never go anywhere. But as soon as you just make one little, like you said, like a guitar note or a stroke on a painting, just throw some painting on a canvas, immediately you're like, okay, I can start to see this coming to life. There seems to be like some validity to it. I'm going to keep going with this and see where it goes. And it never comes out the way I planned it all in my head, but a lot of ways it comes out in a totally different, cool way. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel the same way with that or not. Like,
No, I had that. I had a giant fear about starting the Sparkle on Substack actually, because I felt like my worth as a writer was always like attached to a great editor from like a big magazine.
yeah,
And like I've written for some great magazines. I've worked with some great editors. And I know that some of those articles came out the way they did because I had a really great editor. I do believe that a great editor makes a great writer. It's an important role in that process. But Substack, in a way, was all about kind of throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks. But for me, I knew there was some pieces I wanted to write that wouldn't land in a traditional magazine, whether it was because it was too branded with the Sparkle mission and not everybody's, about elevating the Sparkle mission yet.
yeah,
But it wasn't just that. It was I wanted a safety of where I could share my stories and kind of just like get them out before maybe a major project.
Yeah.
Because so much of my process, kind of what you said, is painting something. Well, it's writing a story and letting it sit and coming back to it, and someday it's 14 pages rather than 4. And that's happened to me a lot. But writing is such a patient process for someone who is that's not my strong suit. And yeah, so with my first Substack, I don't know why, but it was trying to figure out how to explain this. It was infiltrating my dreams, and it was putting me in a bad mood because I was just resisting it so badly to the point where I was letting myself snap on my partner. And it made no sense because it quite literally had nothing to do with Tom. And when I looked at him one morning and I said, "Hey, I need 2 hours. You can't come in the bedroom. I don't know what's wrong with me. I need 2 hours." And I finally pulled out my laptop. And I had been at some point like brainstorming with, friends, like what should my first Substack be? And I couldn't come up with the perfect topic. I was like, Sparkle encompasses so much. And so that breaking down into little steps is really, really difficult for me. And when I finally just wrote whatever, like it just came together like a zipper, and all of a sudden it was about Sparkle without it trying to be like Sparkle. And I realized the things that were infiltrating my dreams or the things that were nagging at me and like honestly like a PTSD. Really, it was like it wasn't about any of those things. It was about me trying to find this light in myself, which is
Yeah.
inherently what I try to do in this space with you, is like, how do we address these nagging
Mhm.
dreams or thoughts and turn it into something that we can believe is light? Because so much of this mission for me is balancing that light and darkness and living with that.
Yeah. No, and that's why I love the mission of Sparkle, and I
Thank
was
you.
really excited to come on here to talk about just this. Um, the big word I always keep coming back to is grace first, and I know that's like in a religious sort of connotation, but I also just think of it as like self-compassion and love. And I think for years I was just being tormented by guilt, shame, um, all these things like like breaking that girl's heart. Like I'm
Mhm.
like, wow, that just only contributed to the depression more because I'm like, oh, I'm such a horrible person. I'm hurting this person I care about.
Yeah.
Uh, and but I think all that guilt and shame, if you just stop there, then you're just kind of like self-flagellation. It's just you're just giving yourself further punishment and kind of like solidifying this identity you have of yourself as I'm a person that hurts people or I'm a person that has these negative qualities. And I don't think it was really until I started transforming myself in that pain through art and being acknowledging that yes, I have hurt people um because I'm hurting, and how do I actually take responsibility for that pain and those troubling thoughts and turn them into something and not let them just kind of eat away at me.
Yeah. No, and I think you raise a really good point, is because inevitably when we are figuring out not just our artistic journeys, but like ourselves, which the
Mhm.
two go hand in hand, um, hurting other people is inevitable.
Mhm.
And that is really, really hard to deal with.
Yeah.
And it creates a stuckness and an actual guilt when you do kind of come into that light, especially if that other person is still struggling
Mhm.
or you see them not coming into their most authentic identity too.
Mhm.
And I know I feel that, especially with like the past relationships, that type of intimacy that you can hold with someone and then see that they're not maybe going the same way. But then it's
Mhm.
also like, you can't be responsible for someone coming into that light about themselves. And who's to say
Mhm.
that's not their most authentic journey either? It's like I don't know half the people that I went to college with and had really great bonds with. They're just not
Mhm.
the same anymore.
Mhm.
Um, but I know that is something that holds me back too. And maybe it's because I also focus on a lot of like coming of age topics.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't know, like for you, where like music especially and painting pictures are such a snapshot in time. How do you approach a snapshot as a way to tell this whole story? Does that make sense?
Hmm. So yeah, I mean, I think another like going back to that example of the painting I did and the painting of my shoulder, there was such a huge vulnerability about releasing that because I never addressed my self-harm in a public sense. It was something I always kept under wraps.
Right.
I'd go to a pool party and not take my shirt off because
Mhm.
I was ashamed of it, that sort of thing. And that was the first time where I was like, I'm just gonna put this whole story out there. And the thing that finally gave me like the courage and the motivation to do that was because this snapshot of my life and what I went through with this, even if there's one other person that resonates with this and can see that someone else went through this really dark time and was able to create something from it and get to a better place in their life that they never even thought that they could get to. I'm willing to share that story over and over again, and it's still an ongoing process. I'm still learning to love myself in new ways, but I think giving those snapshots along your journey, wherever you are, is really powerful and impactful, and it really kind of unites us as people because everybody's dealing with these things.
Yeah, it's true. It's like I think it's always been like we talk about like our art as this big long journey, but it always kind of goes back to a snapshot where like I know that feeling of like I remember like a journal entry from college where I just want to be able to help one single person
Yeah.
with my story, and if I can do that, then I'm successful, which I completely forget that I wrote that. But it's true. It's like, well, it's almost like coming into the time, like the state of mind where it's like, well, what if I'm already like successful then? It's like it kind of shifts your whole reality, especially around those moments where you're feeling like guilt for that one snapshot of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also just think back to like the people that influenced me, like just little things people have said, little words of encouragement, or little people being vulnerable about what they went through. And it might have just been an offhand comment that they made to me, but it stuck with me. And I don't really think there's a way to measure that kind of impact, but I think anytime we can be vulnerable, and it's even better if we can combine that vulnerability with something we enjoy doing, whether it's writing or painting or anything like that. I think, like you said, yeah, I think the success really lies in helping other people and creating more human connection from it, even if it's just one person.
For sure. And listen, one of the things I love about Brian, on top of many things, is his two-stepping abilities at Whitehorse,
Oh,
my
thank
favorite
you.
bar in Austin, Texas. But I kind of want to know what's next. And if you don't know, that's okay, because I want to commission a painting of the Whitehorse sign
Oh,
at
I
some
got
point.
you. Yeah.
Because I was just thinking, like, I don't know, like, one of the things like we were talking about in the beginning is like the collaborative nature and the inspiration that happens from each other here in Austin. And while I might not be a resident of Austin, I do love coming here and hearing about your journey and all the other amazing artists that you've introduced me to. But
Mhm.
Whitehorse is one of those places where I feel the fire.
Yeah.
And there's such a great like light up sign off of East 6th. And yeah, I was just like, I was thinking about it on the way here. I was like, I think I could get Brian to paint me a really cool
I
thing.
got you. I
But
got you.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
but seriously, what's next for you?
Yeah, so I have a really cool art show coming up in I think May 8th. It's called Touch the Art. So it's art that is accessible for people. I think it's in conjunction with the Austin School for the Blind. So
Wow.
the idea is to create an art that's not just interactive from a visual standpoint, but that you can touch and feel. So creating a piece for that currently that's going to be on display May 8th at the Canopy here in Austin for Touch the Art. And then I am really just trying to take those steps to become a full-time artist. It's only a part-time side hustle right now, if you
Yeah.
will, but I would love to take that leap and really do that full-time in the next year or two.
What does that look like for you?
It is a lot of putting myself out there.
Yeah.
It's a lot of applying to shows, applying to art residencies, um, really just trying to, I hate the term legitimize, but
Yeah.
legitimize myself as an artist and build a resume and put myself in spaces that I need to believe that I belong in. And I do believe that I belong in, but there's always that nagging fear that, imposter syndrome sort of thing.
I think that's where it starts, though, is like actually that belief that you belong there. And
Mhm.
that's one of the hardest feats. But like, I know from all the artists that I've interviewed, like that's what gives them a certain edge. It doesn't mean that if you don't do that, that you're not an artist. Like if
Right.
you paint, you are a painter. Like,
Yeah.
right? But that is what gets that almost that through that barrier of being able to claim the space of I'm a full-time artist, which in this society is really difficult to do.
Yeah. No, it's and I've been thinking about that a lot recently. There's a lot of dialogue going on about like how do you still create art when there's so much just craziness going on all around it.
Yeah.
But I think it goes back to our conversation is any creative pursuit is a way of bridging connection with other people. And I do think at the heart of it, all of us as humans are dealing with a lot of the same sort of pains and struggles and fears. And I think it's more important than ever just to keep being vulnerable and keep creating work that resonates with your soul and putting it out in the world and forming those connections.
Yeah, it's this balance of doing it for yourself, but doing it for the self also informs the way that you help other people, and it serves as like a chain reaction.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, like with the craziness of the world, it's so easy to kind of just give up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like now more than ever, like I also believe that art will save the world.
Mhm.
It will save your personal world, and it will save someone else's world. And I think that's where we align on so
Yeah.
much. But I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. I'm proud of
And
you too.
thank you. And thank
Look
you.
at us.
I know. We've come so far from drinking such terrible Natty Light 10 or 12, and now we're here drinking tea and water.
Look at us.
Well, thank you for being a Sparkle King and dressing for the occasion. You look so
Yeah.
good. And don't forget, everyone, check out Brian's Spotify, check out his paintings, and honestly, come visit him in Austin, Texas, because I have the best time every time I'm hanging
Yeah.
out with him.
We'll go two-stepping.
Yeah, no, like actually tonight at 8:30, I need someone to dance with me. So everyone, sparkle on, and don't forget to two-step.